7 trillion last year has gone up to 12 trillion. That although in terms of the GDP ratio is almost the same or a little lesser than last year, but the problem which is there is that in terms of the economic situation which we have and our servicing capacity and capability which we have, this ratio otherwise may be sustainable in the global context if you look at it, doesn't appear to be sustainable, particularly when we are talking of a combination of the two factors coming in. One factor is in respect of the borrowings from the bank, which is resulting in a crowding out impact, which Asad described. And the other factor is the deficit financing, that means borrowing from State Bank of Pakistan, and which will give rise to more inflation. And these are the two factors which are having a problem in terms of the public debt situation. Untargeted subsidies, there was a plan that we'll just reduce them. We planned a total subsidy situation for 11-12 for 166 billion, and against 166 billion, the subsidy figure is 512 billion. 512 billion is a subsidy against 166 billion. And we are targeting for 209 billion subsidy for 12-13. But as you must have heard, the finance minister in his press conference confirmed that the cabinet has given him an power that in order to resolve the secular debt issue, which is causing a problem in the economy, he's been given a power that he could use as much resources as possible to address that. And naturally, that will have a major impact in terms of the subsidies. And we may have a subsidies somewhere around the same figure of 500 billion for the 12-13, as compared to what we are talking is basically 209 billion, which is a target which is being set up for that particular purpose. Good change. The PSDP has remained more or less the same. Basically, whatever was budgeted, almost we achieved that, basically. And it is after a long time, because every year, whatever PSDP was set up, the first cut used to come on that, and we were reducing the development budget every time. This time, the development budget has not been cut, and the figures are almost the same. We are talking of 12-13 as against 3.9% of GDP as a development budget. We are talking of 4.4% of GDP as a development budget. That basically is generally in relation to objects. I'll show you two more charts and then try to conclude the situation with the challenges which we have in the economy. This is public debt, which I've talked about, and I've already explained that to you. That is social indicators in terms of the investment. You have heard that we have reached to a lowest figure of 12.5 as the investment, as compared to, I'll show you India, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh position in a table, and as compared to that, we are in a very, very precarious situation. We're not having the investments, and savings both are down. Savings are down to 10.9%, and the investment is down to 12.5. They are the major hit. There's a major hit in respect of those areas. This is retail prices. I mean, this table is there. It's part of the economic survey. I don't have to take you along how the prices of various products have gone up from years to year, and particularly in the last 4 years or 5 years. We have given that figure. This is basically important. There are comparative indicators of other countries in the region which we have. For example, GDP growth for the Bangladesh is 5.9%. For India, it has gone down. They used to be 8 to 9%. This last year, it went down to about 6.9%. And Sri Lanka is 7.5%. And as compared to 7.5, 6.9, and 5.9, we are 3.7%. That's the growth which we have. The per capita income, basically, ours is $1,372 as against Sri Lanka, which is about $3,000 plus which we have. Inflation, we are talking of 11.5%, and the Sri Lanka is 6.2%, India 6.9%, Bangladesh 7.3%. That's the comparative situation. And in terms of the cost of doing business, they are also far more attractive as compared to Pakistan. And that's the reason that you hear the stories of a lot of businessmen moving their industries to Bangladesh. What has caused all that? What basically we are having as a challenge, and what are the issues there? And I'll quickly run through the challenges. I'll not talk about it in detail. If any questions are there in the discussion, I'll talk about it. It's the low domestic resource mobilization. That is one issue. Our tax to GDP ratio, everyone knows, is around 10% as compared to others basically. Although India is almost the same at the moment. It's wrong that people have been saying that India, the tax to GDP ratio is very high. It's around 10.5% at the moment in India as well. It's not that high, but in other countries like Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, it's getting higher. And as the investments figures are very high, savings figures are very high, the economies are doing very differently. They're weak institutions. We have got a problem. That's what Asad was highlighting, that there has been a problem with the institutions as such. The economic inequality is a factor which is there. Now you see, due to load shedding, there are problems. But what is happening? People are throwing stones on the cars, burning the vehicles, and if we do not address this economic inequality factor, there could be a point where people will be going on the roads and others will come back, drag them from their cars, and may attack them, because that is the scenario which we should all be concerned about. We'll have to work on this economic inequality situation. High ethnic diversity, fiscal indiscipline, low and declining productivity. This is a major issue. Even in agriculture sector, which is our niche, we have a problem of productivity. Our productivity of all the crops is basically lesser than any of the countries in our own region. Lower growth, and that's the problem which we are facing. Our growth has to increase. We'll have to go to 6 to 7%, continue for 5 or 6 years, so that our people's situation improve and the poverty level goes up. As it rightly said, 80% of the population of the country lives under $3 a day. 80% of the population lives under $3 a day. Basically, it's only 20%, out of which 2% may be a higher income, and rest of it are compacted in between as the middle class. High inflation, inadequate investment and saving I've talked about, increased reliance on external and domestic borrowing. We are having a problem of sustainability. Asad talked about energy and fuel crisis. That's a major crisis which is hitting us at the moment. FDIs are going down, and going down for various reasons. Going down. Struggle with macroeconomic stabilization, legacy of economic distortions, pressure of demography, which is important because our 60% of population is 30 years or less, ailing public sector enterprises, security situation and war against terrorism, external shocks, and the geopolitical situation. These are all the areas and issues which we have, the concerns we have. But as Asad came up, we have a great potential. We are a great country. We have so much resources in terms of the human capital as well as the natural resources, that if we address one particular problem in our country, and that is governance and management, if we improve governance and management, I'm sure we can exploit our potential and be a strong country in the economic sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Masood sir. I've just been informed that Chairman FBR has got some other appointments as well. So we request the other panelists to finish their presentation within 10 minutes. Ibrahim sir, I hope, Shabbar sahab, you won't mind doing that within 10 minutes. Now I would like to invite Mr. Ibrahim Sidat for his presentation on the direct taxes. But before that, I would like to introduce you, Mr. Ibrahim Sidat, although he doesn't need any introduction. Mr. Ibrahim Sidat is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan. He is currently the managing partner and chief executive of Ernst & Young, Ford Road, Sidat Haider, a member of Ernst & Young Global International Limited. Mr. Sidat was selected twice as the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Pakistan in 89, 90 and 1991, and was the member of the Institute National Council from 75 to 83. He was the first chairman of the Accounting and Auditing Practice committee constituted under the